Welcome to the Artist Academy podcast, the audio version of our Facebook Live series, Art Talk Tuesday. I'm your host, Andrea Earhart, and I am so excited that you're here to catch the weekly replay of my laid-back yet very inspiring conversations with other full-time professional artists. The purpose of this series is to show aspiring artists like you that it is completely possible to make a great career out of this art thing. And if you ever want to join us live and have your questions answered in real time by myself or featured guests, then just hop over to facebook.com/groups/Artist Academy every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'll see you there. This episode is sponsored by the Artist Academy Advanced Membership, a program for artists who want to up-level their art game by taking it from a hobby or a side hustle to a full-time art business. I've been a professional artist for over 5 years with paintings in several different countries and a client list that includes high-profile companies such as Bass Pro, O'Reilly's, Duck Commander, and many, many more. So I figured out what it takes to build an art business, and now my heart is set on teaching aspiring artists like you to do the same. Go to advancedmember.com, that's advancedmember.com to learn more. This week's episode features California-based wildlife artist Aimee Hoover. I was so pleasantly surprised with how real Aimee is and how she showed up with such honest feedback in this interview. And I asked her all the questions like, how do you get the majority of your sales? And what are the processes behind her dynamic, realistic paintings? And she lets us know everything from where she gets her reference photos to how she gets collectors coming back time and time again to buy her art. We also dive into her September 30-day challenge that she did for 4 consecutive years in a row. So every September, she would complete a painting every single day for 30 days. And if that sounds daunting, just know that you're not alone in that thought. But also know that it is possible, and the benefits that can come from committing to something like that, from showing up every single day and forming that habit and completing that promise to yourself, the benefits can drastically outweigh the inconvenience. And Aimee lets us in on what it's all about. But let me know what you think about this week's episode with Aimee Hoover. I just want to take a second and just say I am a huge fan, and so I was a little nervous to interview you. I was telling everybody, I'm like, I get to interview Aimee Hoover today. And they're like, oh my gosh. So yeah, okay.
Well, I'm nervous too, so we're both on the same page.
Oh, don't be. Oh my gosh, everybody loves you. Okay. Okay, so if you just want to start off by maybe just telling us a little bit of your background, and anybody who maybe lives under a rock and doesn't know who you are, maybe just introduce
You have to
us.
Stop with all that. Oh my gosh.
Okay. Yeah, just kind of tell us a little bit about how you got into art and your backstory.
Okay, sure. So let's see. I was just one of those kids that always drew, and instead of picking up another hobby later in life, I just did it. And so I've just been drawing and later painting. I didn't really have any big plans to be an artist. It was something I did so early that it just felt like a part of me, not like a career, hobby, calling. It just was there, you know? And so because I was doing that a lot, I got a lot of support from my parents. And so, you know, gifts would always be pads of paper or paints, you know, that kind of thing, since I was really little. And so yeah, I just kind of kept at it for a while, and then I went to Cal State Long Beach here in California and got just a general art degree. Like it literally says general art. It doesn't say fine art or anything. It's not impressive at all, but I got my degree, and then I ended up at kind of weird, odd jobs after college, and I always painted on the side. And eventually I got a gig where I started learning graphic design on the job. And so then I became a freelancer still painting on the side. And then eventually, like years and years of kind of side hustling, I was able to make the switch to full-time painter. And that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so you have an art degree, and I think
Yeah.
so a lot of the artists that I interview, kind of goes 50-50 on the art degree kind of a thing. And a lot of times in college, like I have an art degree as well too, but they I feel like a lot of time in college they kind of teach you how to paint, but maybe not how to do a painting business so much.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was talking to a friend of mine who went to a really good art college, and she has friends that went to art college. And I think she said that there was one semester in the 4 years where they talked about anything outside of the technical painting bit, that talked about like galleries or anything like that. But I mean, or actually it was not even a semester, it was one class.
I was about to say, yeah.
Yeah. And like I used to joke, like when I had my degree, I'm like, well, what do I do now? Like, who wants to pay me to paint something? Like, that just seemed, how do you do that? You know, I knew galleries existed, but I had no idea how to get into them. And so I was just painting for myself, you know, in really weird places, like my living room when I had a roommate and in my bedroom wall. I could practically sit on my bed and work. And yeah, I don't feel like they prepare you very much. Maybe master's programs do. I've never took one. But I had, Long Beach State is actually known to have a really good arts department. And I actually didn't know that when I got in. It was it was a wide opening.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it took me a really long time to get actual studio classes. And so I kind of wanted to quit every year. I just thought, this isn't for me at all. And then I got art classes, and then I started going, oh, okay, like this is where I can thrive, because political science was not my jam. Or whatever other class I had to take. Yeah, and I think that's something I always say, like I wish schools, and maybe they do, I'm a little out of touch with that now, but they had, if you declared art or some sort of creative endeavor as your major, like here are the parallel courses that you take to learn how to think more like an entrepreneur, like a freelancer who's going to be independent in the world. Because now, even if you have your stuff in galleries, there's been a big shift where I know a lot of gallery owners are actually looking for artists who already have themselves established on social media. There's like I've heard 3 gallery owners say that right out of their mouth. Like they want them to have a presence, even if their art isn't well known, because an artist's job now is not to just hand everything over to the gallery. It's really to promote themselves, to share work, to develop a presence, you know? And so, anyhow, I ended up kind of doing that just out of like kind of gut level, you know? And I got on, you know, Twitter when it started. So I feel like I've been online for like, decades.
Yeah. Yeah, you were on Instagram probably before Instagram was cool, huh?
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, but unlike a lot of people, I don't have like a crazy amount of followers. It's been kind of like an organic process, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything over 10K is a good amount.
Yeah.
But like, no, I feel like
it's surreal.
You can always, yeah, exactly. You can always compare to like those 100,000 follower people, but still, like, I mean, and it just goes back to the idea you only need like 1,000 true fans, you know. So
your tribe.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just graduated from Missouri State like 5 years ago or so, and they didn't really have like a whole lot of art business, so I don't know that it's really advanced a lot in that area, but I think about all the time, I'm like, maybe I should like petition them to like be like, hey, like, you know, just offer one class that shows them even like how to set up a website or stuff. But really that's why I started this Artist Academy. We have like an advanced membership where I like kind of mentor artists and show them how to set up all that. But yeah, that stemmed from seeing that need in there. But I'm so curious. So you, I actually heard on a previous podcast, so I listened to another podcast you run, you did advertisements in magazines back in the day. Can you, sorry, I say back in the day, but like it was like 5-10 years ago maybe.
It was longer than that, yeah.
Oh.
Yes, back in the day. Because, yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm going to date myself, but yeah, so when I started, social media did not exist at all. None of it.
Yeah.
No Facebook, no nothing. And, you know, us old fogies would look at printed magazines.
You're experienced is how I see it. I'm like, you are way more experienced.
All right, let's go with that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so there was the first kind of iteration of my, I would say, career, where I finally found something that kind of stuck as subject matter. I just started doing dog and cat portraits, mostly dog portraits. And there was, there still is a magazine called Bark Magazine, and they're up in San Francisco. And I used to love their magazine. And unlike, sorry, Dog Fancy, but unlike Dog Fancy, it was kind of like the New Yorker of dog magazines. So it's beautiful articles. It was just so well done. And they had, I mean, I think it must have been like an eighth of a page. And I had room for literally 2 sentences, a phone number, and an image. And in all advertising, the whole repetition is key, right? You just don't put an ad in a magazine one time and then expect to get work. It's kind of like we all need to see something a few times and kind of warm up to it before we actually make some sort of effort to learn more. And so I committed to something like 6 issues, which ended up being about a year. And after the first one, I got a painting a commission that paid for that one ad. And I thought, well, that's worth it.
Yeah.
And I think when I started, I think there was maybe literally 2 other dog portrait artists in that magazine. 2. And then, I mean, now it's just like, you know, you can't swing a whatever without, you know, finding a really good dog portrait artist. There's so many out there. And so yeah, that's how I got started. I just kind of used what was at my disposal and really just wung it. There was no plan. There was just like, let's try this. And it worked. And then I did more of that. And then I tried other things that didn't work and I stopped doing that, you know?
Yeah. For sure. So what is, what do you think your main stream of getting commissions is nowadays, or even print sales or anything? What do you think the main thing? Is it social media? Is it ads still? I'm curious.
So I haven't done an ad in a really long time. That's a good question. I should know the answer. But I do think that, I think it's shifted over time. And I think that now, I think Instagram and really just current collectors, like people who have bought my work before, that's really important. Because I would have these kind of sales on these in September on all this work that was half off, and they were really low price. And so I found a lot of people through that where I call it, sounds horrible, but it's almost like a little gateway drug, right? You get a small, a small painting, an original work of art for like half of what I would normally charge. And, and it was great because I got to offer all this work. I found new collectors, and, you know, a lot of times these collectors, I mean, I have the most awesome clients, and I would say that most people who buy a painting of mine buy a second or a third, which is I'm honored that they want that much of my work in their home.
Yes.
But yeah, I think I would say the people who have been with me a while definitely end up commissioning me a lot. And Instagram, I think, by far of all social media is the best bet for me. I noticed, I think the first time, I was actually shocked. The first time I posted a painting that was a couple years old and that had stuck around the studio for a little bit because it was a very specific subject matter that not everyone, I don't think, would enjoy. And
okay, what is it? Wait, I gotta ask. Wait a second.
All right, it was a big hyena painting, and so people have. I love hyenas, but people have.
I was thinking it was an aardvark or something.
Yeah, I have a warthog back here that I'm sure will be with me for a little bit. But I posted this on Instagram and at just a slight discount. I think it was a studio sale at the end of the year, and I had someone contact me who was not on my newsletter list, and I had not met before or talked to before, and they ended up purchasing the painting, and that was it last year or the year before, and that was the first time something like that had happened so directly. And so quickly. And I just thought, my gosh, like this platform is great because not only did, that I sold a painting, but that a collector who loved hyenas found my hyena painting,
Yes.
because it meant a lot to her, and because they camp a lot and they had this really crazy experience with hyenas around their tent. And, I would think that there's maybe not a lot of hyena paintings out there, but the fact that worked well enough that Instagram kind of put us together.
Yes.
So I kind of see it as, a lot can be said that's great about Instagram, and a lot can be said where people are a little bit frustrated right now. But I do think it's really great for for the potential of taking like the art world counterparts, right? The person who creates the stuff and the people who are looking for the stuff. And I think it does a pretty good job at at least for me, putting us together. And so it's been a great platform for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And a lot of people are like, oh, the algorithm right now. I'm like, no, step up your game. Come on. Sorry, what?
I was going to say, I didn't always love math, but I think it's really funny that we're all complaining about an algorithm. Like, I never thought that'd be something that I'd ever complain about in my life.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Like when we were in algebra or whatever, and be like, when are we ever going to use this? Like, oh.
It's like people are, the same homework is bugging everyone or something.
That's funny. So how someone found your hyena painting? Did you hashtag it hyena painting, or did yeah? Ooh, see, hashtags work, guys. Oh man.
They do, and I remember I don't know, maybe a few years ago, like there were all these articles when Instagram started. They were like, don't use tons of hashtags because it looks desperate. Just use 9, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I'm a hashtag whore. Like I will.
I love that you said that.
but I do it because I'm trying to test out like how my work gets in front of the people who don't even know that they're looking for it yet.
Yeah.
And it's just trial and error. And who is like the person who's out there who's looking for a hyena painting? What are they searching for?
Yeah.
That's my hashtag. I try to think about what they'd be looking for, and yeah, so I use all 30 every post.
I want to be a hashtag whore too. I really though. I'm gonna think about that now because I've slacked on using the hashtags lately. I'm like, I'll just post and put it up. But yeah, I need to get back on it. It's just kind of a good reminder. I'm gonna be like that. Okay.
That's a new Facebook group right there.
I love that you said that. I love it. Awesome. Okay. Well, I was just gonna get into some questions too. What was the tipping point that took you from hobby to professional artist? Because a lot of the artists in the Artist Academy are still hobby artists, and they're starting to get momentum, but they're not quite there. So I think the story that like when people take the jump is so interesting to a lot of people.
Well, I kind of got a little push, but it wasn't actually my choice. It was more like a kick off the cliff. But so I mentioned I was a freelance graphic designer for a while. Actually, when I learned graphic design from the other jobs that I was gainfully employed at, I got laid off like 3 times in a row. And then that's how I became a freelancer, because I thought this whole corporate job is no safer than anything else. It's not like this is safe and freelancing isn't. And so I ended up freelancing, and I just steadily got jobs through friends and acquaintances and stuff like that. And then I had, I would say at one point, there was a company that probably made up about 50% of my entire income, one company out of 10. And that work kind of fizzled up. And a few other jobs I kind of let go because I don't think we quite jived. And so when this bigger job dried up, I had been painting, doing dog portraits on the side consistently, I mean, for probably 5-6 years. And that work seemed to be increasing because of those ads and other things. And as that work kind of grew, the graphic design kind of dried up. And it was kind of like, you know, the universe was like, all right, so you just lost this huge client and you've got to make up that income. Mm-hmm. And so I just thought, all right, that just put a fire under me to really go for the painting. And that's what I did. So I guess I made the decision, but I almost feel like the decision was made and then I just had to run with it. Yeah. But I like to, I think there's this really like great idea of like, all right, I'm going to take the step, I'm going to leap, the net will appear, blah, blah, blah. And I think I know. And I think that's good, you know, but I also think that I believe that if you have a stable job and you're doing this other thing that you like a lot more on the side, I always suggest that like just hang on to that job you're not in love with for as long as you can stand it. And while you have that, really get serious, well, not serious, but like start developing a practice where you're serious about how much time you spend on your art, whatever that is. I don't care if it's just a half an hour every day, but if you just like, you know, get consistent about it, because once you make that leap, if you have that, that kind of practice in place, it's going to make it easier and you're going to be already like a little disciplined to really go for it when it's a little baked in already, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, some people just like pull the ripcord, I'm out, drop the mic, and then go to their easel full time. But I didn't do that because that scared the bejesus out of me. So yeah, I always just think like, just stay as long as you can and develop this other thing so that when you do leave, you're more prepared.
Yes, I love that you just said the 30 minutes per day thing too. When you were saying that, I was like, just that whole spiel, I was like, oh yes, because we have this challenge where in the beginning of the year where we do a 100-day challenge, and I challenge them to paint for 100 days at least 30 minutes a day because it builds up that dedication and just that the habit, like you said. And I'm like, oh man, I am going to screen record this and show them when we do that. Also, yeah. I just want to say your 30-day challenge that you did in September, did you do it last year and not this year? Was that correct? Or did you do it this year?
I did not do it this year, but I did do it for 4 years in a row. So yeah. I got my little college degree of September 30/30s. And yeah, so I did. Now, when you say 100, like I just, like even having done 30 every year for 4 years, 100 is an endeavor. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Our 100 is mostly just like paint for 30 minutes a day, as if that's our 100 challenge. But in January, we always do this is our second year. And it was actually inspired by you last year because I saw that you did. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. And so me and a group that I just started the Artist Academy at the beginning of the year. And in January, we did 31 days and a painting every day. And it was partially inspired by you. And
how did I miss this? I'll have to go check all the work out. That's so great.
Yeah, I actually made a separate Facebook group for that, and yeah, it'll be inside the Arts Academy Facebook group and probably all over Instagram, but we're starting it again in January. And I just want to talk about the 30-day challenge, why you started it, what benefits were it, how exhausting is that? Because it was hard for me to do.
I don't want to scare anyone.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I just think that just the idea of committing, not even committing, but the idea of committing to something like that is scary. Mm-hmm. You know, also because I don't think of myself as a lazy person, but I like my downtime.
Yeah.
And I need it when it's just output. Like I need downtime. And I find that, you know, those 30-day challenges, there's just, you have a little less downtime. So I started it because I'd heard about this 30 paintings in 30 days. And the one I heard about was exactly what you're talking about, which is it wasn't really to start and finish a painting in one day, every day. It was exactly what you were doing, which is like, let's start this habit of working daily, you know? And so if you have the pressure on to do it every day, then it's nice to have the time that's a little shorter to relieve the pressure of the commitment in a way, you know? And so I just thought, you know what, like, I'm not really naturally a small format painter. Like, my sweet spot is like 4 by 4 feet. Yeah. And I knew I couldn't do that every day. But I thought, what if I started and finished a single painting? Let's start them at like 12 by 12 inches and let's try that, you know? And I didn't even know if I could, because it just was such a crazy idea. But then I just committed to it in public, and then I was, you know, I had to.
Yeah.
And so, I managed to get myself through that first September I did about 4 years ago. And because I was offering smaller pieces, I wanted to do I didn't see anybody else doing this at the time, but I wanted to offer the work at 50% off. That was going to be something I did for like new collectors to kind of, you know, have the chance to buy one of the paintings instead of a print. And it went really well. It was really well accepted, or received, I should say. And I think like 28 of them sold. And I did not know my own name that month because I was so tired. But it was so rewarding, and it was great. And I was just shocked at kind of all the good that came from this personal thing I decided to throw at myself, you know?
Yes.
So for me, it was a lesson in maybe committing to something that makes you more uncomfortable than you would like to be or are used to being before you say yes to something.
Yes.
You know, I think that's really good, just day to day in the studio, let alone a month like that, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. It is a whole nother level when you commit to it publicly and people know that you should be posting it every day. And I'm like, whew, oh man. And we even did it as a group. And so I partnered with Arteza Art Supplies. And they gave the winners, if they actually did it every day, they gave them some art supplies or a drawing for it. And so we would post it in the group. Yeah, we would post it in the group. And for the 31 days, it was just small paintings, and we all did them. And I just wanted to get your take on it, and also just to hear like the good things that came from it, because a lot of people, they hear the 30-day commitment and they're like, oh no, they automatically think of scary, and then they don't realize what it can do and how disciplined you can be. And it's just a great way to start the year, or for you, start the holiday season.
Yeah. I didn't think about that at the time. Yeah. And I think, it's like, if I put myself in the position of, someone who follows my work or whatever, like one of my little things that I love aside from painting is I love looking at like gorgeous interior design. So if there was a designer out there that said that they were going to like reimagine this room 30 different times in 30 days, I would be all over that feed. Like, because it'd be so exciting to see like what's next, what's going to be today, like, you know what I mean? And so I think what I didn't even cross my mind, that like just the process of posting something every single day that was new, and that people were expecting and kind of maybe would be surprised by, is like, it did build a little buzz around the whole thing. And I had no idea that it would do that. And, but, when I look at how I follow different feeds, it's like I do the same thing. It gets me really excited when they announce something like that. And so I think it's just good to challenge yourself. And that's just one of the ways that I did it for a few years.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. I love all that feedback and everything. Let's move on to the next question. Can you talk us through your painting process a little bit? Like, what do you do, like a sketch outline, or how do you get it so realistic? Okay.
I use a grid sometimes,
Okay.
actually
Yeah.
most times. I learned in college to kind of, when we were learning perspective and trying to get things really accurate, I would just hand draw that grid on my canvas. And I still do that for like really tight face renderings on the animals. So what I normally do first is I take, I'm starting to use oils a little bit more. I'm mostly an acrylic painter, but so I'll take kind of a wash of color and get that down first. And I'll remove color, obviously, like where the brightest highlights of that animal are going to be. And then when that dries, I do a little grid and I take the image I'm working with in Photoshop. We're getting really technical because I know there's artists here, so I'm talking about it in a different way.
Yeah.
But and then I lay my grid out, and the grid gets really specific, normally in the face, nose area. And I do a light charcoal. The grid is in charcoal, and then the initial drawing is in charcoal. But then I go over that in paint as well sometimes with like a painted outline. And then I normally work from dark to light. So the darks go in first, and I kind of build up the color that way. So that's something I've been doing for a really long time. I'm actually really trying to get away from my own process. But it is a habit, and it's a muscle memory. And in a way, even though it's this kind of step-by-step process, I heard a long time ago, I wish I could credit the person, but they were saying, if you want to change and evolve your work, it's really hard to do that if you don't change your process. Because if you go to the easel with the same process you always use, you're going to create similar work, And so I'm trying to kind of ditch parts of my process here and there. But that's typically how I would approach a painting. I don't go to like a white canvas and then just start outlining stuff. I like having that covered. I don't know. I think I don't have a problem with approaching like a blank canvas, like, oh, what am I going to do? Because normally I have my idea formed.
Yeah.
And then I just see how close I can get to that idea. But lately I really want to be more brave in my work. And so there's a couple pieces I've been working on lately where I'm changing the process, and it's changing the work in a way where I feel like I allow more experimentation and a little more kind of serendipitous things to happen. So,
Yeah, awesome. I love how even though you found something that works, like it's very much working for you, you're still stepping outside of your comfort zone and be like, what else could we do though? And I think that's a little bit of curiosity and a little bit of maybe getting bored with your own every day. Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, good.
It's just inevitable. I mean, like if you paint something long enough, I mean, I feel like I'm really scared at having like a formula. Like I don't want to be like a formula artist where like, here's my steps and you can imagine it's going to be this because it's always been this. And, I've been really trying to like think of ways to like let go and remove myself from my normal habits that way.
Yeah, I love it. Also, I see photos of your studio on your Instagram. Do you put your canvases on the wall? Is that how you work on them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hang on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my
There's
gosh.
one there.
Look at him. Oh, my gosh. That's so smart, too. I was actually working on a canvas that's, like, on the other side of me last night, and it was kind of moving around on the thing, and I actually thought, I was like, maybe I should put it on the wall like Aimee Hoover does.
Oh, my gosh. When I work and on a canvas big enough where when I paint, it shakes the easel, it drives me bonkers. Like, I don't like to hold it and paint on it. You know what I mean? And so, this works great. I'm not supposed to put nails in the wall, so.
Oh, yeah, you just moved studios, which is why you did a studio sale kind of a thing. Yeah, yep. Awesome. You have so much space in your studio. I love it. Oh,
it's ridiculous. I can't even believe. It's still surreal to me, and this is similar to the size I had. I mean, I just moved, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I've had this type of layout this size for, I guess, coming up on 4 years. And it's still just, I mean, a joy. It hasn't sunk in.
Yeah. Do you just do cartwheels like around because you have so much just to stretch out?
Yeah. When my back's feeling good, I will attempt those from time to time.
Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything you don't like to paint without?
Music. I cannot work without music.
Yeah.
And it was just weird because sometimes I'll forget to turn it on and I'll be working and something will come over me like something's wrong, and, but it's weird. Like, I know a lot of people who like to paint in silence, which I also understand. But, when I put music on or like a podcast or some webinar or whatever, it's like initially distracting, but for some reason it forces me into the work more. Like the distraction allows more focus. It's hard to explain, but, also if I'm trying to learn something with some podcast, I kind of figure it'll just go right into my subconscious if I'm not really listening to it.
Exactly.
And I won't have to do any of the work.
Right. Basically. Yeah. I'm the same as you. I listen to podcasts or books all day, and I feel like it just makes it a little bit more pleasant. I don't get lost in my own thoughts, which is just it can be kind of boring. I get into someone else's conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Also, I kind of want to talk a little bit about your art niche. So with animals, how long have you been doing animals? So you started with pet portraits, right? And so did you go straight from that into all different kinds of animals?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, like the thing I used to draw was animals. Like my sisters were drawing like little princesses in the castle, like the typical girly stuff. And I just never drew people. I always drew animals. And so when I was after graduating college, I was painting whatever. Like I would paint landscapes, and then I'd paint like some guy's shoulders from behind or whatever, like whatever I wanted. And but I was all over the map. And I had a gallery owner tell me one day, you need, he grabbed my face and he's like, focus on something, like find something that you like enough to paint 10 of them, and I was like, that sounds so boring. I don't know what that would be, because I was so fickle. I would just bounce around. And but then I had this, my CPA, my tax guy at the time, he was 75 and for some reason not retired. And anyhow, he had these 2 dogs. And the first year I went to him, he said, he's like, oh, you're a painter. I'm like, yeah. He's like, do you paint dogs? And I was like, no. And he said, well, why don't you paint my dogs? Because I have some people, maybe they want some dog portraits. And I'm like, okay. So we did a little trade, and then, they loved the portrait, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I've never had anybody react like that to a painting of mine. They were very emotional, and so I thought this is something I could do. And so it was just a slow process of, getting work from friends of friends and things like that. And then, so I literally almost did exclusively dog paintings for about 13, 14 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I am a massive dog lover. And I got so burned out because at the time I didn't understand how to kind of take care of myself that way. I started just doing like whatever the client wanted, and they were super happy. And so I thought that was my job. I got better at the dogs, as anybody would doing anything for 15 years. But I was deeply unhappy towards the end, and thought I was going to throw in the towel, completely done with art. Like I let it go that long. And so, but then I tried to paint something else, which felt very weird to paint for myself, since everything I'd been painting, I'd paint it and ship it, paint it and ship it. And so I ended up painting this big goat. And it just reinvigorated me. And then I started doing a farm animal series. So that's when cows came into my world. And I was like, well, these are almost like dogs, but they're not. So it's perfect. And and then that was the farm animal series. And then after that, I just thought, well, let's see what else is out there. And, I kind of reintroduced myself to the entire animal kingdom. And, there's just unending stuff to be done. There's just so much to choose from. And for me, like sometimes the weirder, the better. So I get really excited when I get, I got a commission for a capybara, which is, they're those enormous rodents that are dog size, from a client in Australia. It was so much fun. So now I love beautiful animals, but I also love the really kind of weird, odd ones that aren't represented in fine art that much. And so next year, I'm definitely going to try to do my part in bringing some of those into the fore.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Is there a certain animal that you paint the most, or a painting that sells the most?
Huh.
So like if you painted like a lion, do you know that's an instant seller, or?
Yeah, let me see. Gosh. I think, people tend to love the big cats for sure. I feel like I'm always surprised. People love goats. Goats.
Who doesn't love goats?
I know. I love goats. The shape of them, I just find them really pleasing to paint because they have a lot of different things going on. They have like round bellies, but bony little hips. And I just think they're great to paint. But people love the big cats. And birds. That's my official answer. If I could go back, birds.
Okay.
Birds sell the best.
So like parrots or hawks or eagles or what?
Yes.
All of them, just birds. Okay.
I've actually painted everything you just mentioned, and they go.
Awesome. That's amazing. Christine commented here lately, and just to read a couple comments, she's in the Artist Academy Advanced group, and she commented that she loves your work and that your animal portraits have really inspired her.
Thank you, Christine. That's very sweet.
Yes. We've got a couple others that they definitely agree that the Audible or the audiobooks are the way to go, and we have one that says your art is beautiful and very dynamic, and it is. It's very contrasted, which I love.
Thank you, and thanks to everyone for all the kind words. That's super nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of go back and forth. I do like having kind of dynamic poses for some paintings, and then, for instance, I just did a goat that's like leaping in midair, so he's just in space. But then, and that was a dynamic. But now that Brahmin calf I'm painting is very calm, very staid, very relaxed. So I kind of go back and forth with that stuff.
Yeah. Christina actually asked, she goes, I'm curious about where you find your reference photos. She has a hard time finding photos that have dramatic lighting. Do you?
Yeah. So it's funny. I can always tell it's an artist asking me where I find my photos. It's so funny. It's a really good question. I will go deep online. Like I will look at 10, 20,000 photos online. And when I find something that I'm really drawn to, I would say 99% of the time I'm able to reach the photographer and I ask for permission. And it's something I believe strongly in because that's their art, that's their living, or even if they're an amateur, it's still their art. Amateur as in they're not a professional photographer, maybe it's their side hustle, and so I really do my best to find them and ask for permission. So I feel that that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so easy to just grab an image off the web. I've actually had my paintings stolen a lot, like the images of them, and printed on T-shirts, on rugs, you name it. I've had to send cease and desist letters. But so I try to be really good about that. But yeah, so I actually find them online, and I And through this process of speaking to photographers all over the world, like I have this awesome stable of photographers where, so if I'm looking for an aardvark, there's people I can email and go, hey, have any aardvarks? Because if I really like their style, you know. I feel like if I wasn't a painter, I would be either a photographer or an interior designer. And I always think that, like, you know, my skill level as a photographer is not as high as theirs. And if I could have access to being 2 feet away from a warthog and well, I guess you don't need amazing equipment anymore. You need an iPhone. You're good.
Right.
But yeah, so if I had that, that's what I would be doing for all my work. But being able to kind of have this symbiotic relationship with photographers allows me to spend more time in the studio, rather than, like, you know, scrambling somewhere to go find a pelican.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So Christine asked, so it's mostly through photographers and not really one website?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. What somebody asked, Zach asked, have you ever tried painting a whale? He's currently making a whale sculpture.
Oh, cool. No, but that is on the agenda for next year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like
excited.
on a really big canvas? Or
I hope so. Yeah. I probably can't swing you around to show you right now, but I just finished a manta ray commission. Oh. So that's actually going out in the newsletter tomorrow, and I'll post that on IG probably tomorrow too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see. Are there any art lessons that you've learned the hard way?
I feel like they're all learned the hard way.
Right.
The nature of lessons. But let's see. I mean, I've learned some lessons as far as, like, maybe not using materials correctly, not storing artwork properly, and then pulling out a painting from 10 years ago and there's just mold all over the back. I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned, it's more of a business answer, if that's okay.
That's what we're about usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple things. One, I have a rule where I do not mark a painting as sold unless it's paid for.
Ooh.
So, because I've had a few times where someone said, I have a new piece, and let's say it's more of an investment. It's a big, large piece, and they love it, and I'm so glad, and they want to buy it. I'm like, great. And you send the invoice, and goodbye. Like, that's happened twice in my entire career, so that's not a lot.
Okay.
But what happens is if you kind of announce or publicly mark something as sold and it's not actually purchased, technically, you have people who might want that, and then you say, oh, I'm so sorry, it's spoken for, and they'll go and find whatever else that they love and buy that, and then you're kind of left in the lurch and like, oh, did you still want this? No. But I mean, that's a very small part of probably the lesson learning. But another one is to just, I think it hasn't happened a lot, maybe a couple of times when I was doing the dog portraits, but I think when I would get contacted by a potential client, and my gut told me from the beginning that this might be a little too much work based on maybe the tone of the email or maybe getting the initial sense that even if I did my best work, I don't know if they would be happy. I would say I learned a lesson maybe to trust my gut on that and to kind of move forward with people I feel I just know might be more happy with the result. Again, that's only happened like twice in my life, but the clients who say, if I say, let's say they want to hire me to paint a lion, and I'm like, okay, so here's my process. I'm going to do some research, and then I'll present you with like a few different options, blah, blah, blah. Like the clients who say, oh my gosh, no, do whatever you want. Like, we leave it to you. This is your job. will be happy with whatever. Like, that is an amazing thing to hear from a client. And so I think as I've kind of developed my career, I have more of those people, which is awesome. Just the trust, like, to me, that's just such an honor that we might have not even spoken on the phone. You know, it's just emails, and they're investing a sizable amount of money, and they want me to do what I do. It's just, I mean, to me, that's the best scenario.
That is the best. That's amazing. And really, they feel like they know you because they see you online, either on Instagram, because it's kind of a weird thing. Like, I follow like you and just several artists where you get you see their studio, you see this, and you feel like you know them. And that's, I mean, the beauty of the internet. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And the algorithm, whatever.
Well, you know, another thing that just came to mind too is I had, my gosh, probably 3 different clients come to me maybe between 5 and 10 years ago who wanted to do a commission, and they actually came to me after hiring another artist to do the same thing, but the experience was so terrible that they came to me and then did it again, like they hired me after. And so I always say, I feel like, yes, I'm a painter, but I feel like I'm naturally just like a customer service person. Like, that's really important to me. So, like, for people who want to turn this into a business and who feel like commissions will be a part of that, I always say just overwhelm them with the best customer service you can. Do exactly what you say you're going to do it on time, like, be professional. And I mean, and people have told me, like, well, we were going to go with this other artist, but she never emailed me back. And I was like, wow. Like, well, her loss, I guess. But yeah, so that's what I always say is, like, the lesson is to make the experience of working with you the best possible thing, because, you know, this way they're going to hang that painting on the wall and they'll go, well, here's the painting, but my gosh, like, how fun it was to even do this, you know? I just think, like, creating the best possible experience you can for them is a huge, huge thing. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever shopped on Zappos, like, for shoes ever. It's this, like, you know, giant shoe place. And they made a decision a while ago that they're going to be like a customer service company that happens to sell shoes. And I think that's so smart.
Yes, I've actually heard about them on a podcast. They were an example of something they were like, yeah, we're a customer service company that they just happen to sell shoes. And it's just, you're so right. Like, anytime I have a dispute with any company and they just kind of, okay, we'll just send you another one, I'm like, I am going to shop with you forever.
It's very smart. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I love that you're saying this, because I just recorded a podcast episode over exactly what you just said. Just like, you know, show up, do what you say you're going to do. And then you're going to, because like you, I get so many mural jobs from people that are like, hey, you know, we tried to hire 2 artists before you, but one ignored us for 3 months. And then, I don't know. And then I actually had a call of someone saying that they had an artist show up. They did part of the job and was like, sorry, we can't finish this, and left. And I was like, gosh. Yeah. So I came in, I looked like a shining star for doing just the normal thing. And they're like, thank you so much. I'm like,
yeah, you saved the day. That's awesome.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but just yeah, you're right. Like, other artists, I think it's just like having that discipline in yourself to be your own boss and just show up when you say you're going to show up. Because a lot of people will show up if they have someone telling them to, like at a normal 9-to-5 job. But when it comes to your own self, sometimes people are like, yeah, I'll do that later or whatever. But no, just like you said.
Yeah, and I think I feel like I had this idea that people thought all artists are flakes. And so when I decided to go full time, I'm like, I'm going to prove that so untrue. They're not even going to know what hit them. you know? So I feel like I had this chip on my shoulder about that I didn't want to be lumped in. So that's where that started.
Whatever motivates is what I say. But that's awesome. I just love to hear that you are also an entrepreneur and business person behind it, because I think that a lot of people, especially outside of the art world, they don't put the two together. They're like, oh, you just hang out and paint all day. It's like, no. So you saying, all that you're saying, I'm like, it just reiterates what a lot of people maybe don't know that are starting out as a hobby artist and what they need to do. And someone who's been in it for a while and is doing really well, you still do it daily and just you still give them the best experience they can. And so I think that's a really great takeaway for anybody that's watching as well. So I'm just going to do one more question. So we've almost been on here for an hour, and I like to just try to only take an hour of your time.
Okay.
So is there any advice that you would give artists who want to make art their full-time career but don't know where to start, like a good starting point for them?
I would say I'll go back to what I said before, and sorry if it's redundant, but start the practice of having that daily practice. Build the discipline in, and by discipline, I don't want to be like, oh, it's not fun or anything, but like, go play with your paints a half an hour, like you know what I mean, every day. Also, I think, you know, what I want to do is I want to create the best work I possibly can. And this is the bummer of it all, but there is no shortcut. It's practice, it's putting in the time. And I think it's hard to hear, I think, for people who are much younger than me, who there's kind of a lot of instant stuff going on, and a lot of people want to be discovered or whatever. And maybe that will happen, but it's not something you should bet on. And I think if you want to do this, I think you have to have a really strong why. Like, do you absolutely love this? Are you going to continue to do it if it gets difficult? You know, are you going to meet your client's deadline when you don't feel like painting? Like, I think any starting point is just to, you know, play and experiment and discipline yourself to do a little bit each day. And not only that, will that build in the habit of what we're out here doing every day, just, you know, doing the work, but you'll get better. I mean, it will happen. And then by the time you're ready to make the switch, you're going to have like a really nice, you know, body of work to show for your efforts, you know. So I think it's just practice, experiment, and just, you know, enjoy it. Like I still enjoy what I do. I don't enjoy all of what I do, but there's joy every day, at some point in the studio.
Yes, amazing. So what I heard from that is do a 30-day challenge.
Yeah, that was a shorter, much more concise answer. Do a 30-day challenge, join the Artist Academy, and like obviously, like, you know, having that kind of support. I mean, you know, the life of an artist, at least for me, is like you are alone in your studio every day. I'm someone who can handle a lot of alone time, so that works for me. But to have this kind of community now that wasn't available to me when I was starting out is so huge, you know. And so I'll throw that in there too. It's like, you know, get around people who are doing the same thing as you, and also try to connect to those who are a little further down the path that might be able to like guide you a little bit and help you out, which is actually what you're totally doing with all this. So yeah, thanks for sharing all your knowledge with everybody here. Thank you, because that is exactly what I'm doing on here, getting you and other artists too that are doing really well and just kind of dissecting it a little bit, giving some tips. But ultimately, like you said, it does come down to the discipline and the hours that you have to put in. There's really no shortcut. So I just love that you said that. But I love also that you just said literally all the little tips in here too. There's so many takeaways from this. And I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to come on here and talk with us. I know that you've inspired the several people that are watching this, and you're an amazing influence to several of the Artist Academy members and me and a lot of people who are listening to the podcast and watching. This will be available in podcast form in a week, and I'll send you an email with all of the things for you to view it, share it, whatever you'd like. So in true podcast form, like for the people who are not watching you on Instagram right now, can you tell us how to reach you, your website, Instagram? What's the best way? Sure.
Thanks again. I'll talk to you later. This episode is sponsored by the Artist Academy Advanced Membership, a program for artists who want to up-level their art game by taking it from a hobby or a side hustle to a full-time art business. I've been a professional artist for over 5 years, with paintings in several different countries and a client list that includes high-profile companies such as Bass Pro, O'Reilly's, Duck Commander, and many, many more. So I figured out what it takes to build an art business, and now my heart is set on teaching aspiring artists like you to do the same. Go to advancedmember.com, that's advancedmember.com to learn more. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Also, if you ever want to join us live and have your questions answered in real time by myself or featured guests, then just hop on over to facebook.com/groups/Artist Academy every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I'll see you next week.